the regret and the ghost of Satoshi. You know what Bitcoin is, right? Of course you do. You don't need to own one to know what it's worth. And if you ever searched for it on Google, you've probably told yourself the same thing everyone else has. Why didn't I buy when it was worth just a few cents? Relax. You're not the only one who regrets not becoming a millionaire by accident. About 15 years ago, back in 2008, something called Bitcoin appeared. At the time, it was worth less than a cent of a dollar. For years, almost no one paid attention to it, until one day, the entire world started talking about it. Today, as you're watching this video, a single Bitcoin is worth more than $120,000. Yes, $120,000. So, if you had bought 50 back then, you'd now have over $6 million sitting in your wallet without doing a thing. And that's where the inevitable question appears. How can something that doesn't exist physically be worth so much? Why do we give value to a number that only lives on a screen? The short answer is simple: faith. The long answer is this story. Because Bitcoin wasn't born from a bank or a government, nor from a company selling something real. It was born from the keyboard of someone, or several people, who called themselves Satoshi Nakamoto. And to this day, no one knows who he was. He could have been a genius, a secret group, or even a fake name created by a corporation. He vanished, leaving behind only a document, a sort of digital Bible that explained how his creation worked. And the strangest part of all is that he was never seen again. No interviews, no photos, no voice, only his legacy, an invisible currency that changed the way people believe in money. That's why, more than a revolution, Bitcoin ended up looking like something else. A cult, a modern sect with its own absent god, its devoted believers and its single commandment, to believe in what cannot be seen. The hidden creator. It all began in 2008, in the middle of the global financial crisis. While banks were collapsing, a mysterious name appeared: Satoshi Nakamoto. No one knows if it was a person, a group, or just a myth, but they left behind a document that changed everything. A system to create money without banks, governments, or intermediaries. That document explained how to record every transaction inside a massive public ledger called the blockchain. Each new line was verified with mathematical calculations and sealed forever. The idea was simple yet radical: to create value out of nothing, trusting only the code itself. And that's when the act of faith was born. Millions of people started believing that a digital number could be worth as much as gold. The creator never appeared again. His creation kept working on its own, like an automatic religion, without a temple, without a face, and with only one dogma: believe in the invisible. The sacred text. After Satoshi, the only thing left was a file. A simple digital document, nothing more. But within those few pages, the entire idea of Bitcoin was written. That text is called the white paper. It explained how anyone could send money to anyone else without going through a bank, using only computers connected to each other. Satoshi said the system would regulate itself, because every user would keep a copy of all the accounts, as if the entire world shared the same ledger. And that ledger would be called the blockchain. But in that same text, Satoshi also wrote a rule book, a set of laws engraved in code, so that no one could ever alter the balance of the system. In that rule book, he explained how bitcoins would be generated. Every time a miner closed a block, they would receive a reward. The miners, who are really the auditors of the system, the ones who verify and certify every transaction, keep the network alive and are the reason new bitcoins exist. That reward, which today is a bit more than 3 bitcoins every 10 minutes, is what feeds the system and gives it meaning. He also wrote another limit, a final number, almost symbolic. The total number of bitcoins that will ever exist is 21 million. Not one more. When that number is reached, creation ends. To make it even more interesting, he decided that every 4 years the reward would be cut in half. That moment is known among Bitcoin believers as the halving, and every time it happens, the entire system resets like a sacred clock, reminding everyone that the miracle repeats, but it always costs a little more. Thus, Bitcoin became a kind of self-created universe where time, reward, and faith are written in lines of code that no one can erase. The monks, or miners. In the world of Bitcoin, miners don't use picks or helmets, they use computers. And instead of digging for gold underground, they try to solve calculations no one asked for, but that are necessary for the system to keep working. Imagine an enormous ledger where every account in the world is written down. Each time someone sends or receives Bitcoin, there are thousands of miners reviewing and writing the same line at the same time. They're all competing to be the one who closes the page, and only one wins. That miner receives the reward, just over 3 Bitcoins. The rest worked for nothing. They spent electricity, time, and effort for no reward. It's like a lottery. The more computers you have, the more tickets you buy. But luck still decides. You can have thousands of machines running and still lose, while someone else, with just one, wins the prize. That's why giant companies set up warehouses full of equipment, betting that luck will pass through their door. And every 10 minutes, somewhere in the world, someone gets the message: you closed a block, you won. But beware, all this burns a huge amount of energy, so much that it's worth stopping to think about. We won't do it now, but later we'll come back to this point, because there's something serious behind it. The tithe and the temple. Imagine for a moment that every light in Los Angeles and Houston turned on at once. Air conditioners running, fridges open, TVs glowing, cars charging their batteries, everything. Day and night. That's roughly the amount of electricity Bitcoin needs every 24 hours just to exist. And all that energy doesn't produce anything tangible. It doesn't feed, it doesn't warm, it doesn't heal, it doesn't transport. It produces something much harder to explain. Faith. Faith in a number that no one can touch. Every 10 minutes, someone somewhere in the world manages to close a block. And for that small digital miracle, the network delivers just over 3 Bitcoins. It's their prize, their inverted tithe. The offering is paid in light and the reward arrives in faith. Without electricity, there's no network. Without the network, there's no Bitcoin. And without Bitcoin, there's nothing. That's why the temples of this new faith aren't made of stone and glass. They're metal warehouses filled with computers humming like swarms. Inside, thousands of machines repeat the same electric prayer to solve one more equation, faster than the rest. At first glance, they look like modern factories. But look closer, they're electric cathedrals. There, light doesn't illuminate, it burns. And its heat can be felt in the air, in the cables, and in the planet's energy bill. When night falls, those machines don't rest. And if one shuts down, its absence is felt. Because when the power goes out, the god of Bitcoin stops breathing. That's where the myth collapses. A money that exists only while the current flows, a faith that dies if someone flips a switch. And when those lights finally go out, not only does the digital fortune vanish, something more real and much dirtier remains. The trash. The Digital Inquisition. Trash has a name too. In this sect, its equivalent is the Inquisition of Bitcoin. I know there will be people, especially Bitcoin defenders and cryptocurrency enthusiasts, who will say I'm exaggerating. And that's fine. Debate is also part of faith. But so no one thinks this is just an opinion, here are the facts, one by one. And note, everything you're about to hear applies only to Bitcoin. We're not counting Ethereum, Dogecoin, or any of the other cryptocurrencies that are also mined and multiply the problem. So if these numbers already seem huge, imagine when we add the rest. Every single day, the Bitcoin network leaves behind over 136,000 kilograms of electronic waste. Even if you put together 3 Boeing 737 Model 800 planes, their combined weight wouldn't match that. Together they reach about 123,000 kilograms, still 13,000 short of the real daily waste. In 1 year, that's over 1,200 planes. And in the 15 years since Bitcoin was created, the accumulated waste weighs as much as more than 18,000 planes. That's more scrap than all the Boeing 737s ever built in history. An entire fleet turned to dust without ever having flown. But if we think of it in money, the contrast is even worse. A $1 bill weighs 1 gram. If we take the 136,000 kilograms of electronic waste Bitcoin produces each day and turn that into bills, it equals 136 million $1 notes, $136 million in weight. Every day the planet produces, just to sustain this invisible currency, a mountain of waste that weighs the same as $136 million in cash. A whole fortune in garbage. Money that doesn't exist, transformed into waste that does. And if we break it down, each transaction generates about 270 grams of electronic waste, the weight of 2 average smartphones. 500,000 transactions a day equals 1 million phones thrown away every 24 hours. And all that on top of the electricity burned. Globally, the network consumes as much power as 2 massive cities, and its carbon footprint exceeds 100 million tons of carbon dioxide per year. Meanwhile, the blades of the wind turbines that help generate some of that power, made from resins impossible to recycle, pile up in landfills across Europe and the United States. They are the ultimate irony of green energy. Giant blades no one knows how to reuse. The digital inquisition doesn't burn heretics. It burns resources, and the smoke doesn't rise to heaven. It stays here, with us. And when those lights finally go out, not only does the digital fortune disappear, something more real and dirtier remains. The trash. The faithful. And even knowing all this, people keep believing. Some are cautious, buy a little, sell a little, sleeping peacefully, thinking they're just playing in a digital roulette. But then there are the others. Those who turn Bitcoin into a personal religion. They are the faithful. The ones who keep saying this is the future, that no one can stop it, that banks will fall, and that the old system is dying. They don't see a code, they see a cause. And behind every green or red screen, they feel there's a sign from destiny. They guard their keys like relics, watch the charts like prophecies, and wait for the next halving, that moment that comes every 4 years when the mining reward is cut in half. For most believers, that changes nothing. But for miners, the system's auditors, it means earning half as much for doing the exact same work. It's like an invisible boss telling them that starting tomorrow, their salary will be cut in 2. If Bitcoin's price rises, they can make it back. But if it drops, they lose everything. And still, they continue. They keep praying to the god of the algorithm, hoping the price will rise, that the promise will be fulfilled, that this time it'll be worth it. Because deep down, like all faith, Bitcoin doesn't need proof. It only needs believers. The promise. Every religion is born from a promise. And Bitcoin is no exception. It promises freedom. It promises independence. It promises a world where money no longer depends on banks, governments, or anyone else. A world where each person is their own guardian, where faith in the system is replaced by faith in oneself. It's a beautiful promise. Seductive. So perfect that at times, it feels impossible not to believe. But like every promise, it comes at a cost. Because in this digital temple, there are no intermediaries, but there's no redemption either. If you forget your keys, no one can help you. If you get scammed, there's no one to complain to. And if one day faith fades, everything that seemed eternal disappears with a click. The most ironic part is that the creator, Satoshi, vanished without saying goodbye, leaving behind a church without a priest, a Bible without margins, and millions of followers searching for meaning in numbers. Maybe deep down that was his true lesson, that value isn't in gold or in banks, not even in code. Value lives in collective belief, in that invisible agreement that holds up the modern world. Because without belief, nothing has value. Not the dollar, not gold, not Bitcoin. Everything that has value has it because we decided it does. And so, among lights that never go out, and servers that hum without rest, the promise lives on. A faith made of bits and electricity, reminding us that, deep down, we're the ones still mining the illusion. If you enjoyed this story, leave your thoughts in the comments. Tell me what you think about this new world of invisible currencies and their silicon gods. And if you want to keep exploring more stories like this, subscribe to the channel, turn on the bell, and help this community keep growing. See you in the next chapter.